You ever hear a gate slam so loud it felt like a gun going off? That was the soundtrack to the day Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, decided my land was her personal playground. And let me tell you, the only thing louder was her voice echoing across the gravel and cicaskids crying, blue lights flashing, sheriff's cruiser rolling slow with the siren off, but every neighbor within 2 blocks watching. I stood there, boots planted, one hand on the lock, thinking, so this is how a Friday morning turns into a circus. And honestly, if you've never been on the wrong end of HOA's grudge, you don't know what petty means. Karen's kids still sticky from melting popsicles. Helmets cocked sideways were stranded on my side of the fence because she'd shoved them through, thinking my yard was a public amenity she could claim by sheer volume. She hadn't counted on the automatic lock I'd welded up after her last round of threats. Now, she was shouting about lawsuits and property rights, faces red as a fire truck, all while the sheriff rolled down his window and shot me a look that said, "Is this really what my job's come to?" I kept my voice calm, told the sheriff the kids were fine, and said I'd let them out as soon as Karen stopped trying to turn my place into her personal daycare. She threatened to call everyone from the mayor to the fire chief, but the truth was she'd already run out of people willing to listen. The sheriff, boots crunching on the gravel, made it real clear my property, my rules, and all her HOA bylaws didn't mean squat outside their little fiefdom. You could see it dawning on her the realization that she'd pushed too far. The neighbors started gathering, pretending to weed their flower beds, but really just soaking up the drama. Even the delivery guy slowed down for a better view. Karen tried every angle: safety, community, tradition, but when I held up my deed, notarized and stamped, showing the land and the road were mine, her bluster deflated just a bit. The sheriff's smirk said it all. I'll be honest, part of me wanted to swing the gate open and end it, but after months of passive-aggressive notes, HOA drones, and Karen's endless campaign to turn my goat pen into a community learning center, I figured she could sweat a little. The sheriff asked if I'd explain the whole mess for the record. I started from the beginning, the crowd inching closer, phones out, the whole street turning into an open-air courtroom. See, my house is just outside the HOA border. Karen hated that I had land, a pond, goats, and peace she couldn't control. At the last board meeting, she tried to annex my property by community alignment, basically threatened me with fines and code violations until I caved. She'd lost the vote, but not the battle in her mind. As her kids flopped in the grass, playing with my dog, and completely oblivious, Karen shrieked that I was holding them hostage. The sheriff just laughed, told her to lower her voice, and asked the crowd if anybody saw any danger. All he got was chuckles and a retired lawyer neighbor piping up, "Ma'am, did you have permission to be here?" Karen had nothing left but sputtering. Eventually, I opened the gate after Karen retreated past the no trespassing sign, her pride as battered as her SUV's bumper. Her kids shuffled out, and she flung one last threat about the board coming for me. The sheriff grinned, told her the next call would be for trespassing, and as she stormed away, the neighbors dispersed, shaking their heads and smiling. You'd think that would be the end, right? Yeah, you don't know Karen. The next afternoon, a letter stamped with the HOA's crest arrived: community alignment notice, stuffed with lawyer speak about harmonizing amenities, a paper trail of nonsense for the county to see. Karen wasn't throwing a tantrum. She was escalating, and that meant I needed to be smarter, not just stubborn. So I met an old friend at the diner, poured over old property maps, and wouldn't you know it, HOA's main road crossed a strip of land I technically owned, a forgotten easement from decades ago. My friend, sharp as ever, told me to file a clarification with the county. That way, if Karen tried another stunt, I had leverage she didn't even know existed. Driving back at dusk, I spotted Karen at the clubhouse, arms waving, rallying her board like she was Napoleon on the eve of Waterloo. Next morning, a clipboard-wielding inspector tried to snoop around, mumbling about community compliance but without any county badge. I sent him packing, cameras rolling, and phoned the sheriff to log it. The deputy laughed, said it was par for the course in Karen's file. So I put up more cameras gate drive, fence line all backed up off-site. If Karen wanted evidence, I'd give her a documentary. The letters kept coming now, accusing me of operating an unlicensed recreational facility because of my goats and pond. Every one of her complaints got a written, factual reply, copied to the county attorney and the sheriff. It was exhausting, but I knew every piece of paper built my wall higher. One night, my neighbor handed me photocopied HOA minutes Karen's notes in the margins, plotting how to acquire my property. That was the proof I needed. Soon enough, Karen marched up with 2 men in suits, waving threats of lawsuits for child endangerment. I stood my ground, demanded court orders, and when they couldn't provide, told them the next trespass would be a criminal complaint. One lawyer tugged her sleeve, muttering, and they beat a hasty retreat. I emailed the story to a local reporter, attaching sanitized copies. She replied, "Gold." The HOA board, seeing the press circling, started to back away. Anonymous emails arrived. Some members wanted an off-ramp to end the circus. The neighbors, once silent, now openly rooted for me, texting updates on Karen's antics, even providing video from their porches. Karen wasn't done, though. She called an emergency HOA meeting, handed out flyers accusing me of being a hazard to the community, and staged another playdate drop-off, trying to create a history of use on my land. But the gate locked automatically. This time, when the sheriff showed, it was a no-nonsense sergeant who listened, looked at my paperwork and camera feeds, and handed Karen a formal trespass warning. By now, even the HOA board was filming her stunts, clearly planning for her exit. It all climaxed with Karen's failed court stunt of bogus injunction thrown out by a judge with a dry sense of humor. My neighbors came to support me, and when we left, the courthouse felt like a victory parade. The story didn't end with a bang, but with the barbecue neighbors laughing, kids playing, and the gate standing strong. Karen showed up one last time, pale and silent, to hand me an envelope with her resignation and a half-hearted apology. That was it. No drama, no fireworks, just an exhausted surrender. The saga had burned itself out, not with anger, but with patience, paper trails, and a neighborhood quietly choosing fairness over noise. Looking back, I learned boundaries only matter if you defend them, but how you defend them matters more. Sometimes, it's not about winning loud, but standing quiet, holding your ground with evidence, and letting entitlement crash on the rocks of reality. So, what do you think wears the line between community and control? And would you have handled Karen any differently? Drop your thoughts below, share your own story, and let's talk about what justice really means when the gate finally closes.